Just as I speak right now, companies like GMC or General Motors are making big moves of making layoffs, or simple terms, they are cutting down employees. And it's not only GMC and other companies, in simple terms. You should try to understand that there's a layoff that's taking place in the US, and it's really something that is no job, or it's not something like we should be underlooking. You should try to understand that this layoff interprets a lot of what's going on in the US economy. Just try to understand that just of 2025, the US has lost almost 90, almost a mil of a job, or a mil of a number of jobs lost in the US. That means in the tech sector, that means in the social sector. But the biggest question would be like, why right now? And why is it taking place right now instead in the past years? Well, to understand what's taking place, we should try to understand one or two things. Just to understand, the US GDP is predicted just to be around either 2.1% or 2%. We should try to understand that the US economy has been facing what they call a stagflation kind of economy. Let's say a slow growth, or I forgot how to grow economy. It's an economy where it's slowing down. It doesn't show prediction of going forward. However much we cannot say it's going backwards. Regardless, it could be in the reverse actually. But let's try to understand how did we reach here, and how do we come to be seeing such behaviors in the US economy. We should try to understand, one, it will be the geopolitical policies. When Trump came in power, that was I think in January, you try to understand, he came with a policy of tariffs against his rivals, or let's say against foreign countries, including his own allies, let's say Europe. Conduct them with a 15% tariff. Others like China, those almost went to almost 120% tariffs, so well, they had to negotiate back. We should try to understand why right now, and why is this taking place right now. We should try to understand that this kind of tariffs, when they were implemented, well, they had a hit back, or a feedback, or a fire back. We should try to understand that this kind of tariffs indicated one or two things. The countries implemented with such tariffs, well, find their ways to retaliate. And today, I think aluminum and steel is having almost a 50% tariff anywhere in the world. If you're dealing with the Trump policies, well, you have to deal with that. You should try to understand that such countries had to look for solutions. In the first place, this was to help what they call domestic companies, or domestic businesses in the US to create a comeback, so that US citizens could buy their own goods. However, it became the opposite. Well, this actually killed exports. Let's say US exports to the rest of the world, because the tariffs that were implemented on countries, let's say Canada, Mexico, well, they fired back to the US. Well, when it came to companies like Tesla, any company that was coming from the US actually, anything was sold from the US to Canada was also getting a tariff. Same to Mexico, same to other countries. But we should try to understand why I believe and I think tariffs never worked. Otherwise, they're just causing, they're playing a big role in a big layoff that's taking place today. One, tariffs are inflationary in the first place. Secondly, tariffs can never solve the US debt. Regardless how much money we got in the tariffs, or collected by the US government through tariffs, that kind of money cannot save the US, cannot save the US economy from the US debt is happening today, or is facing today. We should also try to understand that it's such a criteria. Let me speak about the US-China relationship that has been going south every day. We should try to understand that. Let's speak about the rare earth minerals. Well, that alone made companies like Ford actually to slow down their production because of the shortage in chips. Well, they lack the materials like the rare earth to create such kind of chips. Politically, it was gonna play out for Trump. However, it backfired. To me and you, who are maybe job seekers or working just for daily bread, that was effective to you and me in simple terms. Again, we should try to understand that just a case of 1 or 2 weeks made over 30,000 people to lose their jobs in Ford. Let's try to understand this in simple terms. We are looking at things that are causing a massive or a higher close-up in the US economy. And one more thing will be the AI bubble. See, to understand how the AI bubble has impacted the US economy, we should look at companies conducting, all companies that are into the tech under the AI. These companies have been massively funded. However, the output or what we'll be calling the feedback of their input doesn't match the input actually. We should try to understand that. I'm going to give an example. NVIDIA has been almost having 85% shares in China just for the chips. However, between the war between the US and China caused it to almost reach having a 0% share in the China shares of the selling of the chips to China. This has been all caused just because of the Trump policies against China, trying to isolate China against the rest of the world, will cause NVIDIA to be in the biggest loss ever. Just like you can see the CEO of NVIDIA just speaking up for himself. Well, my other point would be, let's try to understand the Feds. I think a few days back, the Feds had the launch of about what we'll be calling something that's well known as the Fed meeting, when they had to raise or keep the interest rates. Well, they found themselves cutting the interest rates low by 0.5. As of today, I think it's having the risk keeping them around 4%. One of the best behavior I should try to let you know is one. Regardless either the Fed or is cutting rates or is raising rates, as of today, the US economy is on a trail that has no brakes or ways of stopping. We should try to understand that today the Feds are cutting interest rates means one or two things. Just to save because the Fed started cutting interest rates after seeing a job report or unemployment report raising to almost, that was I think 2% or 3%, something like that. We should try to understand that cutting down interest rates is inflation in simple terms. That means me and you, we are losing our purchasing power every day. And this is likely to go more further because these crimes don't like it to stop. You should also try to understand that move means one or two things. In the first place, means that expect more job losses because production is low, demand is low. And the way how Trump comes up and says that stock market is doing all well and good, it's just time that can tell. Because we used to predict that the US economy, when the stock market is doing good, the US economy is doing good. Well, as of today, that's the opposite actually. Because we all came to understand that the US economy is a capitalist economy. It's an economy where the capitalists earn a lot, whereas I would call the civil servants or the American citizens don't earn out of the stock. Not everyone earns from the stock afterward. So we should try to understand that predicting the US economy according to the stock is one hell wrong of an indicator. Actually, if you look how overvalued the US stock today is almost 213% from rate. They were highly overvalued. Well, this means one or two things in the first place. As I said, the Fed's cutting rates or raising rates means one or two things. It means that the Fed's cutting today rates means it's going to be calling for signs of inflation, like hyperinflation in simple terms. Imagine the Fed running for QE or quantitative easing. It will mean one or two things in the first place. It will mean that the US economy is an era where one should try to understand that they are likely to be heading for a hyperinflation. That means you and my money is going to be losing money abruptly. In that case, we pray for the best, but all I can say as for now, things don't look right. Things don't look like they are running certain. Otherwise, thank you for watching. See you in the next one.